Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This is our 10th out of 10 in the Teacher's Lounge sessions, and I'm excited to be bringing this piece to a close simply because of what I'm going to start next for the following series and how it's going to help even more with what teachers need during this pandemic. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. If you have missed any of the In the Teacher's Lounge sessions, then you can watch all of them on my YouTube page. You can follow me on YouTube at DrCathyO. You can follow me on all social media at DrCathyO. You can also reach me at info@drcathyo.com. So write to me, info@drcathyo.com, if you want to get in touch with me. I've been doing this 10 episode series of In the Teacher's Lounge as a way to do three things. First, to give inspiration and encouragement to all of the teachers out there who have been on the front lines of the education space and suddenly found yourselves in this classroom without walls, teaching online. Some of you had never done that before. So I just want to give kudos to you for the outstanding job that you've done. The second thing I want to say is that I understand, and you have a lot of colleagues and supporters out here who understand how difficult it has been to carry on the type of classroom environment you are accustomed to and you want to create for your students. So you are not alone. We see that, we respect that, we understand that. And listen, you've been bringing your A game to the screen stage, and you should pat yourself on the back for that. The third reason I've been doing the In the Teacher's Lounge sessions is because I just wanted to share some of my own expertise and experience with you all, give feedback, tips, strategies that might help you not only thrive in this environment, but apply in whatever your classroom may look like for the future. We've talked about so many different things: assessment, collaboration, why you need a Wonder Twin, every student should get a gift and what that really means, and why it's important for students to feel good about learning in your classroom. We've talked about seeing students' homes and them seeing yours, and what a different world that is, and a totally different environment than what they are used to. So we've gone through a series of different topics. Go back and watch them on YouTube. Send the links to your friends, to your school leaders. Encourage them to not only get that encouragement for some of those strategies, but some of those strategies and suggestions. Several of you won gift cards last week, so you'll be getting them in the mail probably early next week. Thank you so much. We just wanted to say happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Teaching is a full life job, not full time, but full life. And so kudos to all of you, all of us who do this kind of work every day. The topic for tonight is say something, see something. Say something, see something. If ever there was a time that you as a classroom teacher K-12 needed to really step up and say what you think, what you feel, what you've seen, what you've learned, and what you know about school improvement, now is that time. Listen, gone are the days of silos where you go in your classroom and close the door and just do your thing, because now you don't have a classroom to close the door in per se, and we don't know when we're going back to that, if ever. Hopefully at some point we will. But all over this country, teachers are teaching in classroom without walls. So your classroom door is already open. The secret is already out. Your strategies, your methods, your approaches, whatever you do to maximize learning in that classroom, it's public knowledge now. We can watch it on Zoom, or some people can if they have access, but some of your colleagues have seen it. Parents have seen it. Friends and family members of your students have seen it. Your supervisors have seen it. You're not teaching behind closed doors anymore. So this leadership issue that keeps you hiding in plain sight, that day is over. It is time now for you to rise up and be the teacher leader you've always been, but say something about what you see. Because the importance of developing mastery is not just in your content area, it's about elevating your voice. One of the things that I'm committed to in my personal work is elevating the voice and expanding the reach of master teachers and teacher leaders. So this is your time to really shine. I've been seeing some of the same things that you've been seeing. Families that only have one laptop or machine in their house that they can use. Inequity issues. It's just been unreal what inequity has looked like. Kids who were getting lunch only at school, some of them that was their one meal a day. You may have known that before, but you really understand now the implications of food service in a school environment. I've been seeing the same things that you have been seeing. Governors and other state officials grappling with how do we make sure that students are rightfully educated, but at the same time keep them safe? How do we make sure that teachers still get paid and supported, but are still doing their A game and doing their best job? So all of these issues, government and local policymakers are going to continue grappling with for the rest of this school semester and throughout the summer. And you need to elevate your voice. In some previous work with National Board Certified Teachers, I was responsible for their life after certification, life after becoming a National Board Certified Teacher. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had next to teaching. And I spent time both in my office and out in schools and districts across the country helping teachers elevate their voice. I was training and coaching them on things like what to say when the school superintendent or the mayor or some other state official comes to your school. Don't complain about broken toilets or paint peeling off the wall or lockers that don't have a working lock on it. That's not the time to talk about those things. Those things do need to be dealt with. But when you have the ear of a policymaker, a decision maker, you got to have something to say. So that's why my focus tonight is on see something and say something. People are behind closed doors trying to figure out what will back to school look like. What are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? You don't want them to have those conversations without you, teacher leader, master teacher, person bringing your A game to the screen stage. You need a seat at the table. Some of you will be offered a seat at the table. Will you know what to say? Are you ready? For some of you, the door is already open. All you have to do is walk in and start sharing what you think. Are you ready? Have you been thinking? So I've been having conversations with decision makers, with friends of mine who are school leaders and district leaders and professionals, just to kind of mull over all of the different issues that have to be taken into consideration. For example, if schools open in the fall at whatever time, August or September, what will school look like? Does everyone go back on the first day? Do parents come in and walk around the school and help their children find their classroom? Are all of the teachers ready to just start with the standard course of study on the first day of school? Absolutely not. I did a workshop one time, and I'm going to be doing this in my next series, what gap closers know and are able to do. If ever there was an achievement gap, an assessment gap, an equity gap before, we definitely have one now. Students will be coming back to school wherever and however school is at all different levels of learning within the same content and within the same grade level. What are you going to do about that? Or are you thinking that that is somebody else's problem? Because I'm trying to get you as a teacher leader, as a master teacher, to elevate your voice. What point is it for you to have been teaching 5 years, 8 years, 7 years, 10 years, 17 years, 24 years to just sit back and wait and listen for them to tell you how it's going to be and what should be done? You have to elevate your voice. Be the kind of leader, be the kind of collaborative thinker, not you being self-righteous and knowing it all, but be the kind of collaborative thinking partner, thought partner who brings solutions and ideas to the table. I had a boss one time who said to me, don't just tell me what the problem is. Tell me what the problem is and 2 or 3 solutions that you have come up with. And that helped me so much in my teaching, in my teacher leadership journey, in my master teacher aspirations. What is the problem and what are some solutions you have for the problem? So I've been thinking a lot about, what I've seen and something I would say if I were invited to the table to elevate my voice. I think that everybody should go back to school if they're going back to a building, to the same teacher and the same class that they left. Some of that is looping per se. And I do realize that 8th graders are supposed to go to 9th grade and, 4th graders are supposed to go to 5th grade, and that might involve changing schools. But if I were district superintendent, if I were governor, secretary of state, then that would be one of the issues I'd be discussing with the team of teachers, because everything has been in such disarray and pandemonium during the pandemic that children haven't had closure in every arena. Socially, academically, all of those things, athletics, grade level, scoring and testing, all of these things. So I would send them all back to the exact same teacher face to face, even though they may have seen them online. You know why? Some of them haven't seen them online. That's the first thing. Some of you, out of a class of 18, you've only been seeing on average 12 to 13 every day or every week. Where are those other children? What are they doing? What are their parents doing? How did they make the choice to just not participate in online learning? And was it a choice they really made, or did circumstances force them that way? One of my friends has said to me that in their district, they've had a number of students that they could not find. You know why? Because they were using grandma's address or auntie or cousin or friend at church's address so that they can get into this particular school for whatever reason. And so now the school leaders can't go and find them because they're not even at the address where they're supposed to be. And during this pandemic, they're in their real homes with their actual parents, or they're somewhere else staying safely while their parents are away working, all of these things. Think about the medical professionals that we've been hearing about who sent their young children away for fear that they would come home infected and get their children and families infected. So they sent their children to the grandparents down the street, across town, or to another state. So now those children are getting online learning in somebody else's classroom, maybe, unless they've been in a school district where everyone got work packets, individual worksheets and work packets to do at home at their own pace. I'm familiar with several friends and several districts that feel that virtual learning has been a privacy issue. And so they did not want any videoing or live footage. So teachers have had phone calls and interviews with parents and students, but they've been sending work packets for students to pace themselves and work with parents if there even are parents. Have you seen that? When you have an opportunity, what are you going to say about it? What are you going to recommend be done about it? We've talked about gap closing. What about trauma? Can you imagine how traumatized children will be? Some of them, not just coming back to school this fall, but right now. I'm aware of families that have lost the grandmother, the grandfather, an auntie, an uncle, and a cousin. Do you understand? Their focus is not on the Pythagorean theorem. They're not trying to memorize the Gettysburg Address. They're not even interested in the new math. So have you seen that? Are you in a position to say something? When the microphone is given to you, when you're invited to have a seat at the table, do you know what to say? I'm talking about teacher leadership and elevating your voice. You have to have an opinion, an informed opinion on these education issues beyond your local classroom. Why? Because you do it more than anybody else. You've done more teaching. You've done more parent interaction. You've looked at more curriculum. You've paid attention to more education policy and decision-making than anyone else working in the education arena. You have a voice. You have an informed opinion. You've conducted action research you don't even know about that hasn't been documented. So it is your time. In this Teachers Lounge series, we've talked about several different topics. I'm going to stop talking now because I'm moving on to do another series. But will you start talking? Will you expand your voice? Will you elevate your voice? Will you know what to say when given a seat at the table? So yes, I propose looping just for the first few weeks of the new school year, just so we can reset what normal may be. Think about classroom management and student behavior and behavior modification. Think about norms and protocols that existed in your classroom for your grade level team, for the whole school. They don't exist anymore because everybody's been at home in a classroom without walls, and they've been operating according to the norms and protocols in that building, the home, the one they live in, not the structure and the environment that was set at your elementary school, middle school, high school, or whatever school that they're in. So how will we deal with the classroom management behavior modification issue? How will we address trauma? What will assessments look like? How will we close gaps? How will we deal with the gaps and the equity issues? There are just so many things that need to be taken into consideration. What about the children who have been displaced, just totally displaced? Going back to school is going to be a new environment for them. You as an educator need to have a voice on all these different topics, an informed opinion. I'm encouraging every teacher that's been in the Teacher's Lounge with me for these 10 sessions to sit down sometime over this weekend and say, what are 1, 2, 3 major problems in my local school, in my district, in my school context? What are these local problems, and what is it that I recommend for a solution? And listen, I've done a lot of research on problem analysis and the problem of the problem. And sometimes what we see or what we label as the problem is not really the problem. So behavior or bad behavior or misbehavior, maybe that's not really the problem. Maybe that is a symptom of what the problem really is. So then we have to get to the root of that. Schools work the same way. Teaching works the same way. Content works the same way. Pedagogy, all of this is your way, your approach to get to the bottom of, the root of what is really going on so you can address the main issue. And I want you to think about that from an education perspective. Think about safety in going back to school this fall. Will students go every day, or will there be a staggered schedule? That's something else I've seen. I've read about it. It's been talked about. It's been in the news, the staggered schedule. So what does the staggered schedule look like? Are some students coming on Monday and Wednesday and others coming on Thursday and Friday? Are some students coming 9 to 12 Monday through Friday and another group coming 1 to 3 Monday through Friday? What does that look like? Have you seen that? Do you have something to say about it? Do you have recommendations? Do you have solutions? Do you have ideas? Do you have an informed opinion? Of course you do. My question is, don't keep it to yourself and your couple girlfriends or guy friends on the phone. Elevate your voice. Now you're saying, how do I do that, Dr. O? You need to be writing about it on your social media. You need to be writing about it on your laptop, because many of you out there started books and started books and started books and thought about books that you could start and you have never finished. And now is your time. You've written curriculum. You've come up with all kinds of learning games and lesson designs. And it's somewhere in a folder in your classroom or in your phone, in the notes app. This is your time to elevate your voice. Your article should be in the newspaper. You should be reaching out to parents and friends. Now, wait a minute. You're probably saying, are you telling me I need to do all of that in addition to all the work I'm doing right now, trying to manage all of my students in a virtual environment? I'm saying you do it anyway. I don't know any effective teacher who doesn't multitask. I just don't know one. When you're writing your grocery list, you're thinking about something you need to pick up for your classroom. When you're writing lesson plans, you're thinking about other activities that go on in the school, which one of your students are involved in those activities, how you can support them. I mean, that's what effective teachers do. As you are going over student work, you're thinking about not holistically just what you taught and how students performed on the assessment, the test, or the evaluation. You're thinking about their individual needs and concerns, behaviors, all of the things that influence their performance, what is happening in their lives, because that's what gap closers do. So if you're an effective gap closing teacher, that's what you do. So teachers multitask. You have a plethora of masterful ideas, objectives, dreams, goals, strategies, projects, materials, lesson aids, learning games that you haven't created yet. Let this summer be different than any summer you've had before. You probably can't go on summer vacation anyway. So let this summer really be your see something, say something summer. I mean, I want to see you all really showing up in social media with your grand, great, evidence-based, outcome-based ideas of how we can solve some of these problems in schools, and perhaps some of the systemic issues that we're seeing in education could be because you or myself and people like us were not at the table. Or when we were offered a seat at the table, we didn't have something to say. Please let that not be you. What are your recommendations for going back to school? What are your recommendations for staggered schedules? What are your recommendations for what mentoring looks like at the collaborative adult learning level? Do you know that my next series is focused solely on student-teacher preparation, because so many student teachers have reached out to me, including some I taught in the early part of their master's program, to say, I am not ready. I was only in the classroom 4 weeks before schools closed. I have not been allowed to teach online because that goes against school policy. So I've not had any experience. I don't know what to do on day one. I don't know about rules and resources and procedures. I don't know how to use the grading system. Think about student teaching for those of you who are educators. During my student teaching, God bless Corinne King, rest her soul, she gave me so many ideas and strategies that had huge influence on who I was becoming as a young teacher. She didn't just tell me what to do, but she coached me in a way that helped me really think about what I was doing, why I was doing it, a different way that it could be done, what outcomes I expected. And then she gave me an opportunity to practice a few times, and then I took over the class as a whole. Now, I was fortunate that something happened with another faculty member who had to take leave. And so when my student teaching was over in the latter part of March, I was hired at that school to actually teach as a full-time substitute for the rest of the year. So I got so much experience. But at the end of a traditional 8-week, 10-week teacher internship, that mentor gives you materials and ideas and suggestions and papers and software and links to support material that's available online. And so many student teachers didn't get that because the mentor teacher, cooperating teacher, or classroom teacher of record had to go on with this new life in a classroom without walls. So that's going to be my next. That's what I've seen. I'm saying something and doing something about it. So my next series is for a closed group of student teachers who just need to finish the student teaching experience with me online. And while they won't be in a classroom full time, they'll have a full-time coach who's helping them work through what to do. Listen, if you know any fresh, brand new, novice young teachers who will be teaching for the first time this fall, please send them my way. Tell them to go to my website. I really want to get them in this class and help them get prepared. That's what I'm doing as a teacher leader. That's what I'm doing to advance without leaving the profession. That's what I'm doing to lead without leaving the profession. We can't just leave. We can't just give up. Even some of you veteran teachers who are at your retirement level or retirement age, if you're still effective. I could sing a little song, if you're effective and you know it, clap your hands. If you know that you're effective, listen, don't walk away with all of that in your toolkit. Empty your toolkit in that school building, in that school district, for all of these other teachers who need it. What have you seen? And what do you have to say about it that's going to help improve school culture as a whole? So now we've talked about students not being on grade level. We've talked a little bit about looping. I told you what my idea would be, to let everybody go back at least, at minimum, for the first 3 weeks of the school year. Everybody needs to go back to the classroom where they left off. They won't be at the same content, of course, or lesson plans. I know that, but they need to go back to the same social environment just for closure and in some way just kind of leveling the playing field. And then we need to figure out how we move them to the next level, what looping looks like, even if we're going to do that. I'm very concerned about this whole idea of staggered scheduling, and I've been hearing lots of education policymakers talk about that, but we have to be very careful. I certainly hope they have some teachers and some parents at the table, because think about the personal lives of families when one child goes to school on these 3 days and another child goes on these 3 days, or two children go 2.5 days in the morning and then another child goes 2.5 days in the afternoon. I mean, it could be incredible for families. It might work for a school who might have to still seat students at a social distance, but it may be a huge conundrum for families. So we have to think about all of these things. And you know what? A lot of times the decision makers aren't thinking about these things because they don't work in classrooms doing what you do every day. Do you hear me telling you it is your time? I am in your face telling you, teacher leader, you cannot continue with business as usual. You have to have a whole brand new plan of how you're going to make an impact and make a difference in your broader classroom beyond walls, and what you'll do when you get your seat at the table. Another thing I want everyone to know before I close out this series is that you can expect, I'm not saying this to scare anyone, I'm saying this to inform everyone, you can expect lots of teacher layoffs, dismissals, and terminations for this fall semester. Budgets at the state level and the federal level, of course, which then trickles down to the district level, have been hugely impacted by this pandemic. And I don't think people are thinking about that. I think because teachers went home and just started teaching online, and some of you are teaching online for just an hour a day or a couple of hours. And while it hasn't necessarily been fun and easy, and it hasn't been rest because you've still been trying to manage your own family and things like that, it has been a very flexible schedule. Know that going back this fall, there will be a lot of teachers not coming back, or a lot of new teachers planning to be there who won't have jobs because the money won't be in place to keep them. Now, my concern about this is what that means for people's personal lives, but my concern is also what it means for class size, what it means for inclusion, how that has an impact on students with exceptional needs, some of them who haven't been getting services in this virtual environment. All of these issues have to be taken into consideration when we start making grand changes to how we do schools. I'm not saying they're not being taken into consideration. I'm saying, do you have a seat at the table? Do you want one? You should have a seat at the table. So listen, think up. I guess that's the best way for me to explain it. If you see something, say something, but think up before you say anything. Some of you as teachers, you're going to have to think up. What I mean by that is elevate your thinking beyond where you were before. I'm just going back to my classroom and I'm just going to do my best job because I just love kids. That day is gone. We are facing major educational challenges in the U.S., other countries as well, but certainly in the U.S., that we have never seen before. It's your time to elevate your voice. That's what this last Teachers Lounge session is about. Elevating your voice as a teacher leader and master teacher and education professional. Elevate your voice. Have something to say about what you've seen, about hiring and firing, about looping, about how to assign students to schedules, what to do about all of the children who did not come back when school let out for whatever reason, how we manage with children where no English is spoken at the home. And let me just say this part. There's a part of me that I just hate to talk about this because I get very sensitive about this issue. But let us not assume that all of the children went home and received their laptops and right away got engaged to great learning. Please don't assume that. There are some children who didn't just come to school to learn. They came to school for lunch. They came to school for love. They came to school for safety. And they live in a crazy, unhealthy, almost impossible environment. So no, they have not been reading Dr. Seuss books. They've been trying to survive because of every kind of abuse, neglect, and trauma that they have lived with in those homes just on the weekends and evenings while they were coming to school 100 days, 180 days a year. And now they have been at home with their darkness 24 hours a day. And I tend to get emotional sometimes thinking about this because I feel that those students more than anything have been lost. It's great that we gave laptops, and it's absolutely wonderful that we kept serving lunch. But it is very, very disheartening to think about the kind of lives some of our students already have. And they were somehow managing getting home right before dark and just making it through the night until the next day. And now they've had to live in their life for 24 hours a day. And for some of them, that has not been a good experience at all. Have you seen that, master teacher, teacher leader, person teaching in a classroom without walls? And what are you going to do about that? What can be done about that? How will we serve these students when they come back to school or back to whatever school is or will be in the fall? And I intentionally said the word serve, because we teach students, but we also serve them and serve families. And they have needs beyond English, language, literature, and composition. They have needs beyond social studies. They have needs beyond math and science. What will we do to help address those needs? Who do we need to see? Who do we need to talk to? Who do we need to connect with? What do we need to write? Who do we need to track down? What congressman do we need to call? So what am I saying? When you see something, say something. Every educator that is out there, every concerned public citizen, every teacher leader, every parent who's concerned about the educational system, you have to get involved. You have to pay attention to school board meetings. You have to know what's going on in your community. And I have to say this part. If you are in any level of ministry, if you are involved in any faith-based organization, then I think you have a personal, vocational, heart responsibility to get involved in the challenges and the systemic unrighteousness that we see taking place in education, especially public education. What can you do? How can you volunteer? How can you support an after-school program? What might Saturday school look like? Or tutorial? How can you contribute? How can you help write grants? What is it that you can give to support all the gap closers, classroom teachers who will have to figure out how to get students back on grade level some way? So again, I'm Dr. Cathy Owens-Oliver. Thank you so much for joining me for 10 episodes of In the Teacher's Lounge. If you have missed any of them, you can get them on my YouTube channel. You can follow me on all social media at DrCathyO, and you can write to me at DrCathyO, info@DrCathyO.com. info@DrCathyO.com. My next series will be for student teachers, helping them get ready for the real world this fall, whatever this new real world will look like. So if you know any student teachers, please have them write to me, info@DrCathyO.com, so that they can be included. Thank you for joining, everybody. My prayer for you is that your family will be safe and well and healthy, that this pandemonium in the world won't create a pandemonium in your home, and that you as an educator will do the best teaching that you've ever been in your classroom without walls. Have a good evening.